Hello, welcome to the second part of the tower defense game tier list. Go watch part 1 if you haven't already. Link will be in the description. Now, I would like to say that this is only my opinion, and I played most of the tower defense games on Roblox. A good amount of these games are actually quite good and are worth playing. Now, let's get into the video. First, I'd like to re-rank a few of the games in the original video. Starting off with TDS. I initially didn't give TDS a reason to as why I put it in S tier. It is also probably the second oldest tower defense game on Roblox. Its updates are high quality, yet there are many bugs, update delays, and pay-to-win features. So instead I'll put it in A tier. Next we have good old tower battles. This is considered to be the oldest tower defense game on Roblox. When I put this game in C tier as an example to rank other games, people were not very happy. So, I've decided to put it in A tier as well. Up next is base defense. I also didn't rank this game very fairly because I thought it was just some buggy mess. But as it turns out, it's just an underrated tower defense game that is completely unbalanced, from which the player base hates the devs for it. So, I'll put it in C tier, and hopefully someday the devs can work on rebalancing their game. Up next is cube defense. I don't have much to say about it, so I'll put it in C tier because why not? Next is world defenders. I'm putting this game in D tier because the gameplay is not very enjoyable and the towers are not very consistent with their design. Now that I've re-ranked a few of the older games, let's move on to the newer games. Starting off with action tower defense. The gameplay is pretty decent, yet it gets boring quick. Also, this TD game is more so targeted towards younger audiences, so I'm not a fan of it. I'll put it in C tier to be generous. Next up we have Ether Rush. It's actually quite a good tower defense game with unique mechanics, like movable troops and 2 upgrade paths. Unfortunately, this game doesn't get updated often, so I'll put it in C tier as well. Next up is Arena Tower Defense. No. Next up is Ammo Tower Defense. This game is just all around terrible. Both the GUI and animations are absolute dog piss, and the game was made with only free models. We got ourselves another F tier game. Next up is Base Tower Defense, a name quite similar to Base Defense, yet they are two different games. But once again, the enemy animations are robotic and the towers are very similar to TDS and tower battles. I'll put it in E tier since they at least put in some effort. Next up is Bubblegum Tower Defense. This game is very reminiscent of Bloons Tower Defense 6. The entire game attempts to mock BTD 6, yet the devs add block pets to defend your base against pink and purple blobs. Honestly, the game could have been executed way better, but I'll give it a C tier for now. Next up is Combat Tower Defense. This game is a direct copy of TDS but with different troop names. The recruit has the exact same animation as the scout, the enemies shatter when they die, and they both share similar GUI. This is going into F tier since there is no originality in this game. Next up is Critical Tower Defense. Many people requested me to play it, so here it is. This game is actually quite good. The enemies might not be the best, yet the troops are somewhat original. I'd recommend people to play this game as it is very underrated. I'll put this in A tier for good effort. Next up is Defenders Depot. This game puts you straight into a match with no lobby or no elevators. The game also forces you into a solo match, which kind of sucks. The game just doesn't look appealing to me, so I'll put it into D tier. Next up is Garden Tower Defense. This game reminds me of something else, but I can't seem to put my finger on it. Who cares, this game gets a solid C tier. Up next is Mecha Cubes, or Mecha Cubes, whatever you want to call it. This game heavily reminds me of Cube Defense since it has similar mechanics. Because of this, I am going to put it in C tier with Cube Defense. Up next is Newbie Tower Defense. This game I extremely hated, since the entire map contained high-quality free models that lagged my game into oblivion. The gameplay is also incredibly boring and unfun. I strongly do not recommend playing this, and it's going into F tier. Up next is NPC Tower Defense. This game also sucks. The faces look like they were drawn by a 5-year-old, the spelling and grammar is just insanely stupid, and the guns fire downwards when shooting at enemies. This game gets an E tier, as it is basically Newbie Tower Defense but slightly better. Up next is SCP Tower Defense. I'm actually a fan of SCP content, so I'm going to be a bit biased on this one. However, this is just a standard tower defense game with no unique mechanics, so I cannot rank it any higher than C tier. Up next is Tower Blitz, one of my absolute newest favorite tower defense games on Roblox. It has tons of original content and gets updated frequently. The only downside to this game is Roblox's optimization issues for low-ended devices, yet this is out of our reach to fix. So, this game gets an S tier. Next up is Tower Defense Mythic. This game also puts you straight into a match with no lobby or elevator. The enemies are just plain old Roblox packages from the catalog. Also, the troops don't even change their design when upgraded, only their stats change. So, this game gets a D tier for at least showing a bit of originality. Next up is Tower Galactica. Now, there isn't much to say here besides the game being pretty original. The game is also very underrated and is centered around its own story. So, I'll give it a B tier. Next up is Undertale Tower Defense. It's literally just Undertale but a tower defense game. It's a decent game, but is it worth playing? Not really, but it has pretty high quality assets. So for that, I'll give it a C tier. Next up is Universal Guardians. The game has similar mechanics to regular old tower defense games, but mixed with mechanics from Plants vs. Zombies. The game also has some unique towers and enemies, along with some sort of quest system. This game gets a solid B tier. Next up is Pixel Gun Tower Defense. This game is heavily inspired by Pixel Gun 3D, well, only the guns are inspired by it. Anyway, the game itself is pretty well made, but the best and the most unique mechanic is customizing your troops with different weapons. I haven't seen anything quite like this, however, the game could be better. I'll give it an A tier as well. Next up is Realm Rush. Yes, this game has John Roblox in it, which is quite cool. Anyway, the game isn't very beginner friendly and is very poorly optimized. So for that, it's going in C tier. Up next is Project Tower Defense. Just like Realm Rush, this game is not very beginner friendly, giving only a couple towers hidden/stealth detection at non-affordable prices. Me and my friends also used promo codes for free coins and still lost since only 2 of our towers could detect stealth. This game gets a D tier. Up next is World Tower Defense. I assume this game is supposed to mimic 2008 Roblox. Anyway, this game has a pretty unique mechanic of using multiple lanes. However, the game requires a lot of communication between one another, so don't expect to be winning a lot. This game gets a B tier. Well, I guess that's all of them. Wait, what's this? Now that is over with, here is the completed Part 2 tier list. If you have any more tower defense games for me to rank, put them in the comments. Anyway, I'm off to procrastinate until I have more video ideas. Goodbye for now.